Hey Mia.
Hi, Angel.
Well, here we are again, having played through another battery of, oh, actually just three chapters, I think,
Was it?
Beyond Two Souls. I think so. No, you know what? You know what's the episode that I keep forgetting, or the chapter? It's the first night one, where it's her first night
Oh,
in the
right.
facility.
Oh my
That
God.
one I keep forgetting. So it was, oh gosh, I'm not going to remember them all at this point, but we'll sort of talk through them.
Yeah.
On the whole, what were your thoughts on this most recent slate of episodes?
Um, the first thought was it was a struggle to wait to talk to you until we could record our conversation because um there were a number of events that were troubling, I would say. There the not homeless, well, some of homeless bothered me, but it was, I'm not sure what the name of the chapter is in this moment, the one where she goes to the bar. Oh, just like any other girl.
Yep, just like other girls.
Yeah,
Or
let's,
like other girls, I think it's called. Yes.
right. Let I'd be happy to talk about that one first, but I'd also like to know, like, what your thoughts just overall. There was a lot of discomfort for me in this
I'm not
bunch.
surprised. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we can certainly start with like other girls. The game continues to be interesting for the fact that the story is presented out of sequence, and yet I still, as of this moment, haven't determined why. I
Right.
think that my best guess is honestly that if it was told forwards, it would be rather simple, but at the same time they'll do these things like it just when we get to the condenser, I have some
Right.
specific thoughts on that. But sure, like other girls is was memorable to me because it appeared to occur very, it was on the timeline just after the party one, and yet Jody appeared to be at least a couple years older. So
Yeah.
that was the point where I realized that when it shows you that timeline at the beginning of each chapter, the distance doesn't seem to matter at all because it was showing right next to the party episode, but
Oh.
she looked significantly older. And also I had a question for you in Like Other Girls, the friends that she's meeting up with, you can see a picture of them on her bathroom mirror. Was that the same girl that she went to the party with? Like, did they make up, or was that a different person?
I did not make particular note of who the girls in the picture were, but I would be really horrified if they were the same because there are some things that are not forgivable. And it would really suck if the story was saying, "Oh, but she's still friends with these girls," or "It's all okay now," or, God forbid, what if she is the girl in the group who is kind of the goat? I don't
Yeah,
know. Yeah.
just gets crapped on all the time, but doesn't
Yeah.
have a different friend group that values her, so she just sort of keeps coming back. Yeah.
Right.
Although, like, in Jodie's story, I could envision that being the case because honestly, what other group of similarly aged people is there for her? Like, that's one of the things that's established in Like Other Girls. She's spent her entire youth in that room. I mean, not
Right.
not entirely. She knows how to drive, for example, which I was questioning at one point. Is this a Michael Myers situation where Michael Myers spent his entire life in a sanitarium, got out, and is just like following all the traffic laws? Is that one of the books you
Oh
read in there,
my
Michael?
God, that
Um,
is hilarious and something I never thought about. Okay, go on.
but yeah, she does seem to be capable of leaving the facility, even though that's where she lives. Although on occasion she is restricted to that room, as we see in the episode where Dr. Willem Dafoe says you can't go out, and you have to stay here, and they do lock her in. And man, I searched for every available
Yep.
option that didn't
Yep.
involve seizing that guy's soul and turning him into a meat puppet. I
Yes.
really did not want to do that, and it almost any exercise of Aiden's power to like hurt people makes me uncomfortable. And this was somehow worse than that.
Oh,
because
yeah.
this is a trusted person that she's known for years, and she just strips him of his dignity and self-agency.
Yes, yeah, you're making me realize I think every single chapter that we covered in this group was incredibly troubling. I hated controlling Cole. Like the breach of trust there. I was racking my brain as I was playing, trying to remember, did we see any scene that was in the future from this point in which Cole was present? Because I don't know how you come back from that. I don't know how the two of them have any sort of relationship at all after that point.
That's an extremely good question. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, due to the non-chronological presentation, I don't remember offhand. And
Right.
like you said, as I assume this went the same way for you, once he has served his purpose, she walks him off into the woods.
I know.
Like, go down the path now. And that felt, yeah, I was not a fan of that. As much as Jody wants to go out and like have a night out with other friends, that's it. She's not a good person. And I'm someone who says on a frequent basis, teenagers are garbage people. They're not going to always be, but they're selfish and rude and inconsiderate, and and it's just the way that you are. It's the way that I was when I was a teen. And if nothing else, boy, this story understands that, because I did not feel good about Jody in that scene.
I
for
know.
all the reasons discussed.
Right. And for me, see, here's the thing though, for me though, because obviously she's the star, she's our heroine in all of this. And my thought is we are intended to have empathy for her. We're intended to be positively inclined for her and toward her rather. And that scene, I don't care how much you want to rebel, there's a line, I think, that you can still be a garbage teenager and not be a sociopath. Like, it's not enough for her to feel bad about this. That's, sure, I get the remorse and that she really doesn't enjoy doing it, but she still does it. And honestly, at that point, I'm thinking that's not teenager, that's sociopath. I don't know if I'm using the term correctly, because sociopath and psychopath get conflated, but that was too far.
It's the equivalent of watching some sort of a teen romp, where one of the things that they do to sneak out of the house, like, they don't just sneak out of the house, they dose their mom with sleeping pills or something. And
Right.
It's like, yo, that's dangerous.
Right.
And there's also something appropriately horrifying about the way that Aiden seizes somebody's body, where their eyes like roll back in their head,
Right.
and they're completely blank, they're completely emotionless, and they're a puppet on strings.
Yeah.
And I would think that even if Jody thought for a moment, like, to have Cole open the door so that she could get out was one thing, but then like she has him escort her out,
Yeah.
and then continues to like drive down the road with him.
Right.
Yeah, so first of all, were you able to talk your way past the guard, the front reception guard?
I was. Wait, hold on. Before we move forward, just put a bookmark there. I just want to state right now, for the record, if this story moves forward and there is no acknowledgement of the breach of trust there, if this was just sort of an event in the past of Cole and Jody's relationship, I am going to be really disappointed in the story, in the telling of the story, if it's not acknowledged.
It'll be, I think
Yeah.
you brought up a really good point. Like, now I'll be like you, on the lookout for any additional mentions of Cole that happen after that scene.
Yeah.
That don't include him saying, "F this, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm not going through this again."
Right. All right. So that aside, I did talk my way past the guard. Did you not?
I was able to, yeah.
Okay.
And then when we got out to the car, Cole got into the driver's seat, and I was honestly feeling like, okay, Jodi's not getting into the back seat like she's being chauffeured around like that. We're already way past the appropriate use of a friend's car here. So I went to like walk all the way around to the passenger side.
Yes.
And then when she got around to the trunk, it was an option to get in there.
Yes.
And then I was like, oh, right, because we're on like a CIA. I don't know if it's a CIA, but it's a government facility. There's probably going to be a security checkpoint.
Right.
They might have questions if she's there. So I'll hide in the trunk, which is then what I did. How did you ride out of the compound?
I also rode out in the trunk, but quite honestly, I wasn't aware that was what was going to happen. When I saw the trunk, I was like, trunk, this is going to be odd. And then, I wasn't entirely sure what was the point, but it was shiny button, trunk button, press the button, sees what happens, and then she climbs in, and I had no idea like how I was supposed to feel about that, because that was so bizarre. It was, yeah, so trunk is my answer.
Yeah, and then she, walks Cole off in the woods and
Which
proceeds to
yeah,
the seediest bar.
Right.
Like, it's not on the wrong side of the tracks, it's on the tracks.
Right.
This is like the worst place. And she goes in, and like, as soon as she walks in, the place is such a dive, and they're just like wiping the tables down with scum rags. And so she goes over, and was it the bartender? Somebody comes up to say, "How old are you?" And she's like, 21. And it's like, okay, whatever.
Right.
Just goes and gets her a drink or whatever. And did that happen here? Did she order a lemonade in this? Now I'm trying to remember. I saw a different event. I saw a movie that had a similar scene, and now I'm all turned around.
The bartender came over to her, asked her how old she was. She said 21, and he, gave her the look like he didn't believe her. And then she did ask for the lemonade.
Okay.
But he brings back, having cooked with lemon juice, like straight lemon juice, the juice of a lemon, he brought her back a bottle of lemon juice. Like, this was not lemonade. This was just, I bought that product off of shelves. It was so hilarious to me. Like, I was hoping beyond hope that she would make a face like a person would if they drank straight lemon juice. But no,
you think the developers at Quantic Dream just Google searched lemon?
Yes.
And
Yes. And in fact, on the label, because there's concentrated lemon juice and there's concentrated lime juice, it said lemon and it was a lime. Like, everything about that moment was so distracting in its absurdity. But
oh wow, I picked up on none of that. Yeah, I was thinking of something else when they brought her like a margarita or something. So no, it was a lemonade.
Yes.
And then she starts wandering around, and I have two questions for you. With the number one being, did you use Aiden to eavesdrop on the guys at the bar?
No, it never even occurred to me. Never occurred to me until I saw the percentages at the end. Because what I did was immediately head toward the door. I tried.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I tried to get her the fuck out of there, and they wouldn't let me.
So there was an end of chapter thing for did you stay in the bar? So you did not stay in the bar, or what happened specifically?
No, I tried to leave, and it turned her around. It gave you that sort of false wall, like, nice try, but you're in here now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it didn't occur to me, it never ever once, to try to leave the bar, because at that point in my head, Jody is so committed to this course of action
Right.
after what she did to Cole that she's not going to leave now. She's already made so many bad choices. So yeah, Jody got up, she went into the restroom. That was where I was when I had Aiden like eavesdropping the guys and confirmed like, okay, this is going to be bad. But I will say that in eavesdropping on the guys, neither of them was in the right, but one of them was clearly way more into this, like, let's go harass and assault this young
Really?
woman, like way more, which brought like the events that followed a lot of concern, but that led to the pool game. What was your experiences during this?
Through my panic and red rage, I was trying to, when given the option of being, what was it? You could tell the truth, you could lie, or you could evade. I think I chose to lie each time, because if I were evasive, that could come across as, I was concerned it would come across as weak.
100%
okay.
agreed. That's exactly
Yay!
the same logic I was using. I think I lied every time.
Yeah, oh my God, I love you. Yeah. I mean, I didn't want her to be participating in this at all. Yeah, but Angel, what was going on with her? First of all, was she set up by people who were supposed to be friends, and then they just lied to her and said, yeah, go to this diviest dive in the world and get yourself in trouble? Like, or is she so, did she misconstrue the address? I mean, there was something to the fact that she's so naive about the outside world that she could approach a bar from the outside and say, this is where the party is. Like, you have to be dangerously sheltered for that to occur to you, and not just for you to roll up and go, oh no, this is not where a birthday party is, or whatever kind of party.
That's one of the main reasons I was trying to work out who was she intending to meet, because the people in the picture looked like, Jody looks a lot different than she did at the party, and I'm not great with faces to start with,
Right.
so I can at least see it as possible that the people in the picture were the birthday girl and the glasses girl from that party. And I might be way off on that, but yeah, as of the end of that scene, I was like, so she got ditched by her friends.
Right.
Like, there's just, I don't understand why her friends would tell her to be there, to meet her there around that time at that place, and not show up. It strikes me as a cruel trick that was being played on her.
Yeah. And what was the other thing that was seeping in for me, though, the majority feeling that I had processed, or during the process of going through this scene, was I was angry about being slow walked through the anticipatory torture. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was really upsetting to me that I had no choice but to slowly, agonizingly slowly move closer and closer and closer to the obvious outcome of this. It felt prurient, I think is the word that I want to use, but it was like a form of torture porn kind of feeling that I was having. Can you make sense of
No,
that?
I think that sort of mounting dread,
Yeah.
and when I say anticipation, I don't mean in the excitement sense. This suspense that you know something terrible is about to happen.
Right.
You don't know how bad it's going to be, and it's early. It's interesting that it's early enough in the timeline that Jody, it's not necessarily clear to me how much information Jody has about Aiden's level of power relative to protecting her. And also, but like as a player, who has seen what happens for Jody later, like Jody is actually in no danger from these two guys, assuming that Aiden intervenes.
Right.
However, if she doesn't know that, then the threat is very, very real to her.
Yeah.
And it wasn't clear to me how confident she felt about this, given the fact that she had continued to hang out in the bar. And the answer is, like a lot of teens, you can sometimes just not believe that anything bad will happen to you. Like that happens to
Right.
other people. I'm gonna be fine. And I say that as someone who interacts with teens and also has been a teenager at least for a while. So I remember that. And there was this one move that it was an interesting moment where I don't know anybody's name ever, but
Right.
the bigger of the two assailants, the darker haired guy, like does this thing after he picks up the pool cue. Jody specifically says, "No, I'm good," and he's like, "Oh, you can't play pool by yourself." And I think that she takes a shot or something, and then he does this thing where he sort of like very pointedly edges past her,
Oh, I
where he sort of like
yes.
physically gets very much in her space. And I was
Yes.
like, okay, Aiden, you can just do it now. We don't
Right.
necessarily have to wait. I think everybody's intentions now are known.
Right. Oh, for sure. And just I have had that happen to me in real life. And that is just I don't know that I have anything else to say about it, but that's yeah, I don't know. I really did not like that scene, and I didn't like the fact that it was added into the story. It felt gross to me. It felt exploitative. I don't know. If it is about showing her naivete and showing also that Aiden is a source of frustration for her, but also a companion and a savior. Well, a savior, I don't know, but
A
a
guardian.
protector. There we go.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Okay, that's fine. We could have done it in a way that didn't involve sexual assault. I don't know.
And it
Yeah.
doesn't feel empowering at all.
No.
By the end of that scene, you were not feeling like this was a coming of age moment where Jody realized the power that she wields
At
when
all.
she's curled up in a fetal position on the pool table sobbing. Like
Yes.
that's so yeah, again, because this game is told in the sequence that it is, we've already seen Aiden wreak more havoc than this.
Right.
And we've seen Jody more in, if not command of, at least have a higher comfort level with what Aiden can do on her behalf when it's needed.
Right.
So what was this scene there to accomplish?
Right.
We've already had she's naive around reading social cues. She's not popular. Like, we got that in the party. This scene doesn't serve to advance that very well, and it doesn't serve to, like, now I understand what I'm capable of doing. It just felt awful all the way around.
Yeah. Yeah. And they put her in this position of they put her in this victim position, the storytellers, like directly on the back of her being really grotesquely uncaring about another human being. You know, like how do you go from leaving Cole in the woods just by himself at night somewhere to having, you know, protective feelings toward her and not wanting to see her get hurt. It was a real mind fuck.
Yeah. And for better or worse, and I assume that things escalated for you along the same lines, when things got real, I felt real good about throwing the tables and the chairs and otherwise, like, having Aiden go all poltergeist on them.
Right.
When the gun made its appearance, I very much, if I had had my say in it, the main assailant, the darker haired guy, would have gotten shot dead, and then the bartender in puppet mode would have held that shotgun on the other guy but not actually fired. And again, maybe this goes to having overheard them at the bar. Neither of them is innocent, but one of them is criminal, and that's the larger guy. The other guy was, during the conversation at the bar, being like, all right, come on, stop it. Like, you know, knock it off. Like, you know, this is getting weird the way that you're talking about this. Now, he didn't physically intervene to stop the assault when it was happening.
Right.
I don't know that he deserved to be the first to get shot. That said, I wept no tears when what was done, and all three of the men there, you know, lay dead, because
Right.
at least two of them had the ability to stop this. Like, that shotgun doesn't make an appearance until Aiden pulls it out. So the bartender has a
that's
lot of
interesting.
explaining to do as well. So yeah, it was a whole bunch of thoughts about, like, I definitely knew which of the three of them I wanted to be very dead. The other two, I was less enthusiastic about murdering, but then also wasn't too upset when they went down.
Well, sure, and that's really interesting because I didn't have the perspective of having eavesdropped on the guys. It just didn't occur to me. So to me, all three of them were equally culpable. So that's it. That's all I'm saying about that. I didn't have that perspective. So they were all just as guilty. If you're just standing there letting your friend, you know, do this and not doing everything you can to stop it, whatever, I'm good with you going down along with them. But the struggle that I had was, this is great. I can scare these guys and rattle the lights and fuck up the environment, do the poltergeist thing, but I wanted to get to the killing faster. Like, for me, I was like, why are we threatening and frightening these guys? That doesn't, like, they haven't earned the right to be frightened. I don't care about that. I need them to be stopped. So
yeah, and there's very much the argument to be made in this scenario of it's not like there's a large crowd. It's not like there's a bystander effect that's happening here. There's
Right.
only 4 people in the bar, and 3 of them are engaged either actively or passively in this
Right.
assault.
Right.
It goes back to the old saying, if you have a table of 12 people sitting down and one of them is a Nazi, you've got a dozen Nazis sitting there.
Damn, I love that. I've never heard that. Oh, yes. Hug. Yes. Just yes.
And was that the last of the chapters, although not the last chronologically. We also, I think the first one was the condenser, if I'm
Yes.
remembering correctly.
Yes, it
And
was.
I'm very concerned about accidentally catching any spoilers, but my number one takeaway from the condenser, I had a couple, but which came first, that or Stranger Things? Because,
Right.
like, guys, not to spoil anything from Stranger Things, but it's so similar in its design. It's not just the scenario, but it's and I want to say that this came first, and this is not an accusation by any means. If anything, I appreciate this vision of this underground industrial lab that is very form follows function about the whole thing, and let's go into this environment that's gotten very, very dangerous and try to correct it.
Right.
But when she got into that chamber with the condenser, I was like thinking very, very much of Stranger Things and some
Right.
elements from that. It
Right.
was so similar.
Right. And I don't have anything to add to that, but yes.
Were you
But-
able to get out of that without killing the scientists? Like there were some percentages at the end of the
Yep.
condenser that were very surprising to me about. First of all, like 80% of people shut down the condenser. What did the other
Right.
20% do?
Thank you.
Die? Like, what
Right.
is it?
Like, what is the other option there? I have no idea.
and only 95% killed the possessed scientist. It never occurred to me to not kill the possessed scientist. That was
Right.
that was a do or die. It's him or me. And again, I at a couple points very much struggled with the QuickTime events.
Oh yeah.
It's like, at one point Jodie's like scrambling across the floor on her back and trying to kick her way across the floor away from and I'm like, I can't fault her for this because she's taken some real wallops to the head in the last 15 seconds.
I know. The QTEs, I think it must have been there was one chapter in particular in this last group that we did, where it was again the case of, I have no idea which direction you are asking me. Is she blocking here? Is she taking an offensive position? Does she need to duck? I have no clue. So yeah, she got brained a bunch.
There was one particular one where she was like dragging like a big heavy, I don't know if it was a toolbox or like a server rack or something, she's dragging something off the table,
Right.
and I naturally pressed down, and I guess in retrospect I was supposed to push left because she's sliding it across the table so that then it will fall. It's like, okay, game, like,
Right.
it doesn't have to be that precise, maybe.
Yeah. But overall, with the condenser chapter, that to me was really troubling. Only because I hadn't yet gotten to like other girls. But what was happening for me in the condenser was like, are we seriously asking this young girl who has a tremendous amount of power, but she still is capable of fear, and she still has a teenage brain. She doesn't yet have a strategic mind that can plan out exactly what to do and when and all of this. And so we're just like, Dr. Willem Dafoe is saying, I don't want you to have to do this, but can you go do this? And I get it, but I also don't, because what? Like, she walks into a burning building with I felt so bad for her, is my point. The fear that she had to be experiencing going through this and watching people get reanimated, and it like touching them and experiencing the moments of their death. I just, and then just the physical terrain that she had to maneuver to get to the actual, like, once she was in the condenser, when she had to get to the control switchboard, whatever the hell. Just all of it was, I don't know how she had a functioning brain after that. Just the trauma. I don't know. It just really struck me.
I sort of doubt that we'll get an answer to this next part, but the idea that Willem Dafoe concluded that there's one person we can send in to bring a stop to this, and it's the young woman that I've been acting as a surrogate father for the last, decade and a half, that, like, Jodie doesn't appear to know anything more about this situation than anybody else, and
Right.
having apparently never been to this facility before, knows less than anyone. So Willem Dafoe is admittedly correctly assuming that her relationship with Aiden will give her a layer of protection that none of the other soldiers have, that they
Right.
can't beat this through numbers or application of force. They need someone that can parry this threat on its own plane of existence. And he's right, but one of the elements that was frustrating to me was at the end when he embraces her and says,
Yes.
I never should have sent you in.
Yes.
Okay, what? Because A, it worked out, and B,
Right.
when did you come to that conclusion? Because we didn't have to drive here.
Right.
I was watching Gilmore Girls. I didn't have to come over here.
Right. Exactly. I'm so glad you honed in on that, because that was what I was feeling too. I was sitting there going, what changed for you, sir? Because it was more terrible than you could have imagined, and it was successful. Like, yeah. Yeah.
You sent in the only person. His line there should have been, you know, I never would have sent you in. You were the only person that could do it. Like
There.
something like that. Some sort of like reaffirmation of the fact
Right.
that this was horrible. It was something that needed to be done, and she saved lives. Not like
Right.
not
Right.
it felt like he put the focus on how he felt about what had happened, and that's just a
Yeah.
weird place for it to be in that moment. It neither should it be one of triumph, okay? This isn't the end
Right.
of Ghostbusters where they're all gonna have a big dance party among the shaving cream. Like, it's terrible what happened there. But it's it was a weird thing for him to say given what
Yes.
she had just gone through, for sure.
No, and that's unsurprisingly brilliantly put. And I think the idea that was trying to be conveyed there was how much he genuinely cares for her. And
Yes.
I'm cool with that. And frankly, I already knew that. They did a good job of establishing that. It is clear that, you know, he deeply, deeply cares for her like she is his daughter. Great. You know, but yeah.
There is
yeah.
that Willem Dafoe tax that you have to pay to convince the
Yes.
audience that he's not the
Yes.
villain.
Yes! Oh my god!
You really have to go overtime to be like, okay,
Oh.
guys, he's not actually the dark villain here.
Right, just don't look at his smile, right? Look from his nose up. And just trust us for a second. I know. And by the way, at some point during these chapters, they were talking about Hawkins, and I was like, who the fuck is Hawkins? And because now, after our previous conversation, he is just only Dr. Willem Dafoe to me. So I had no earthly idea.
Which feels like another Stranger Things reference, by the way.
What?
Hawkins.
Oh my God, you're right.
And I cannot imagine. I'm 99% sure that, actually, I think I'm 100% sure that Beyond Two Souls predates Stranger Things by several years.
Yeah.
I also cannot possibly believe that the Duffer Brothers drew any inspiration from Beyond Two Souls.
Right.
I doubt that. But there's a lot of crossovers that became apparent in at least that chapter where it felt like, you know, and also like Eleven having the shaved head in
Yep.
Stranger Things, and you see Jodie at one point. It's
No, for sure. And I would say even the sheriff in the beginning, that like the first character we're introduced to, who is interacting with her in the first scene, he's got a hawk look. 2016, Stranger Things came out in 2016, and Beyond Two Souls was 2013. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think it's much, much, much more likely that they're simply drawing from similar inspirations and tropes that predate either product.
Right.
I don't think that there's anything here, but yeah, it's interesting. Now, the other thing that happened in the condenser was, and this is where it's like what I have a few thoughts, but I'm thinking specifically of the moments after the rift is closed, where Aiden has gone silent and
Yeah.
Jodie is calling out to Aiden, and I'm thinking to myself, this is exactly the sort of moment that does not work when you're telling your story non-linearly, and we've already seen Jodie with Aiden for like years after this.
Right.
So then what is this scene supposed to communicate? And I think it is that Jodie now feels very, very, if not protective of. I feel like Jodie has a much warmer relationship with Aiden than she did when we saw them younger. I think that
Right.
that was the purpose of that scene, but I wanted your thoughts on it as well.
No, I think that's correct, because I very specifically remember trying to suss out the nature of their relationship, you know, because Aiden is an annoyance to her when she's young, but she so heavily relies on him as she gets older. And yeah, that moment where she was afraid that she'd lost Aiden was significant, and it was definitely informative. I mean, at the very least, what you can say about their relationship is it's complicated. you
Hmm.
know. But
Yeah,
I
it
don't.
felt
Yeah,
like she was at least briefly contemplating the idea that she might actually now be alone for the
right,
first time, and that
right.
wasn't she wasn't ready for that and wasn't happy about it. So I feel like that's maybe what that was supposed to be there. But yeah, I was watching that being like, okay, well, I know Aiden is right there. She may not like in the moment, but I know because she hasn't yet gone to that CIA party where she spied on the sheik or the mullah or whoever that was.
Yeah, and by the way, are we supposed to feel positively about douchey CIA dude, whatever his freaking name is?
He's been in it so little, I don't know. I really don't. I'm not even sure he's a character. I feel like he's just sort of like an acquaintance.
Well, and like he was douchey to her in that scene when we're first introduced to him, when he's standing next to her not looking at her. We don't know what their relationship is, but he is definitely not succeeding at reassuring her. And the problem for me was in the training montage when she would do her when she would spar with her trainers, and then she would look over at him, who is watching from the sidelines, and she was seeking his approval. And that really got under my skin, because I was thinking, all right, so clearly we're going to have a chapter where he's the love interest. And I just don't feel yet like he has earned her looking to him. That's sort of a lot of information, but we mentioned him, and that brought that up. I will be very curious to see how their relationship develops, because I think something will happen.
He's been in a number of chapters. They've probably given him a name that, as always, I've
Right.
overlooked. But yeah, and then wasn't it near we didn't really talk about these moments in the last conversation, but at the end of her her assessment, when he comes over, doesn't he like mutter something? He's like, "Welcome to the CIA," and then he like turns away and like mutters something
Yes.
to himself about like, you have no idea what you've signed up for or something. Am I
Something.
remembering that correctly?
I don't remember exactly what it was that he said, but there was definitely a difference between what he was saying to her and what he actually felt about the situation. Because he turned around and said, like, it was something, yeah, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something that was like, wait a second, what's happening here?
And then one of the chapters that is the one that I kept forgetting was sort of in this block was the first night, which appears to take place extremely soon after
Yeah.
Jodie meets Dr. Defoe,
Yeah.
and she got assaulted by the monsters. And also, let's acknowledge, you were 100% correct. In the first batch of episodes, I thought that she said the monster singular,
Right.
but now in this batch of episodes, it becomes very clear that she's talking about a just legion of
Right.
smoke monsters that are beyond her direct perceptions. At least as far as we know, she can't see them, can she? Because here's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
She does perceive Aiden. In the first batch of episodes, she drew a picture for Willem Dafoe
Oh,
of what
right.
Aiden looked like, which was a black blur that was attached to her by a cord.
Right.
And we do see some glimpse of Aiden at some point. I'm trying to remember where it was specifically, but that is in fact what he looks like. That he's not a person. He's a smudge in this fabric of reality.
Right. Right. And so I feel like whenever the monsters attack, she's never making eye contact. I mean, that could also be a result of I'm focused on which buttons, which direction to yank the sticks. But I doubt very much that she can see them, because they always come upon her unaware.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like she, that she, it's like fighting the invisible man. She's getting grabbed. She's aware that she is under assault. She can feel them, but I don't think that she sees the blows coming. And do you have any theories on why why the monsters are coming for her. That
No.
this is a Jody problem.
Yeah, no, I have no idea. So I'm still, I think I'd mentioned this in the last conversation. I'm very curious to learn more about what they are and what their intentions are. I mean, obviously, right now they're vague malevolent force, that want to hurt our girl. But I don't have a sense. I don't know, maybe I have no idea. I also can't figure out how these tangible elements can scratch her. It's not like they have nails. The scratching is odd to me. Like, what's the mechanics there? How do they physically mark her body? Maybe it's just her being thrown around and banged into stuff. I don't know.
It could be. It could also be a reference to, liars in the real world who pretend that they're being scratched by ghosts. They'll like run their nail along, and then as it turns red, oh look, the ghost got me. So it could be a reference to that. Like, what if that was real?
Yeah.
But that's, they're capable of like lifting her up and tossing her around and stuff. So it's possible that whatever force they're exerting on her is like causing those scratches. But yeah, it's a real guess.
Yeah.
We did get, I think, the closest thing to like the start of a clue where, and now I'm really trying to remember exactly at what point we do get a glimpse of Jody's birth mom.
Right.
At some point.
Right.
And this brings me back to a moment that had happened in the first batch of episodes. I had asked you during this scene where Jody is sort of trying to get to bed and you are get to sleep and you are Aiden. I mentioned that you could go down through the floor,
right.
And you said that you had not.
Right.
So I stopped talking about it. When you go down through the floor in that scene, you can eavesdrop on a conversation between Jody's parents where her father says something to the effect of, we were asked to look after a little girl. This is way more. Okay, so you did get that.
Yes, I did get that. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, it was clear to me, or I did get that information from that scene that they were not her birth parents.
Okay, I didn't want to spoil that if it was something that you hadn't known, but here it is. Like, this is Jody's mom, and she has a line as the baby is being taken away. And I guess we're making some assumptions that that's Jody, but
yeah,
and where she says, "I've changed my mind. I want to see her." Like this is something that she entered into this room with the understanding that her child would be taken away. So is Jody the product of some sort of experiment or extra natural, pregnancy that they knew that she was going to be different in some way and then placed her with a family that would keep them apprised of anything unusual that happened? Yes,
I think that's exactly correct. That it was all very intentional. What the process was, is still unclear, but she just yes.
And then I think that brings us to like the last chapter that we haven't talked about, but I think the longest so far, which was Homeless.
Yeah.
And just what were your thoughts on the whole on Homeless?
Okay, so wait, before we go into Homeless, just very, very quickly, when she opened her suitcase in first night, and what she had in her suitcase was a pink bunny rabbit and a flashlight, like, I died. That was just it was equally tragic, hilarious, adorable, heartbreaking, bizarre. Like, I really hope that wasn't sort of an oversight on the part of the developers who just didn't think to add more appropriate or more typical things in a suitcase. I hope it was very intentional that she had a bunny and a flashlight.
Yeah, I suspect I really think that this is the suitcase that Jody packed for herself, and all of her other things were delivered by her mom that her mom had packed. Like, that's sort of
interesting. Okay.
that's my assumption. I don't think that anybody thinks. I don't think that anybody on the development team thinks like, oh, she'll just show up with one stuffed animal and a couple D cells and she'll be good to go.
I know. But I mean, God, that moment just murdered me. I very, very. As I shared, there were about 100 emotions going through me when she opened up that suitcase.
And on that note, you know why I think that it like there's when in at the beginning of Like Other Girls, when you are trapped in that room and you get some time to explore it,
Yeah.
there's so much detail in that room that show that Jodie has lived in this space
Yes.
for so many years. And one of my favorites was in sort of her main living area. There's the camera that's up above the one-way mirror,
Yeah.
and she sort of painted a smiley face where the camera is one of the eyes.
Oh, I
And
didn't
that's
see
like
that.
it's just little things like that where when their environment designers are putting that much thought and effort
Right.
into what's something that a teenager might do to express herself artistically and express her displeasure and this weird dystopian surveillance state that she's very literally living in, when they're thinking it through to that many degrees, I have to assume that they're not taking the bunny and flashlight as like an actual representation of how she arrived at the place. Like
Sure.
it's just sort of the way that I think about it.
Yeah.
Storytelling can be crude and super sloppy, but this I feel okay about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I thought one of the really brilliant things about First Night was going into the room that we had already seen. That room was familiar to us because we'd seen it, very early on in the game, and it had already been lived in. There were coloring books and things like that, and just walking into it for the first time, knowing the room but seeing it in its proto state was really neat and horrifying also, because it's like, here, little girl, you are going to live the rest of your life in this hotel room.
It's so clinical.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. But also, wait, just as far as details, do you notice that every pair of jeans she wears, she's colored, she's drawn on?
Mhm.
I love that. I love that detail.
Yeah, I don't know that I mentioned it, but I was looking at the detail work. There's a lot of Jodie's personality that comes out in her environment, and I remember thinking or talking about that in an altogether different narrative game that I was playing recently, where it's always interesting to explore a space that belongs particularly to your character,
Right.
that you learn a lot about who they are in the world, and that's something that Beyond Two Souls does in a couple interesting ways, because you get to see that same room at different stages
Right.
of Jodie's young adult life and childhood and then young adult life, and it puts you into her mindset and what she likes and what she's interested in and
Yep.
how confined she feels into that space, that she looks for any opportunity to express herself.
Yeah, and it's so identifiable. It brought me immediately back to the evolution of my room growing up and how it changed over the years. Yeah, it was nice. So, in Homeless, I mean, Stan was everything. I think the voice work that actor did was incredible, and I think the rendering of his facial features, I don't know if I'm gonna have all of the correct words, but he was so beautiful as a character, and it was so obvious in every way that he delivered his lines, and every facial expression, that you could see his soul.
Stan was really, really well done, and he had
Yeah.
this one move that he did where after Jodie has woken up and she has a chance to sort of explore that underpass encampment that they have,
Right.
and I walked around and I interacted with people, and then I came back to Stan because I feel like you have to. I don't
Right.
know. And as Jody sits down, Stan is reading a copy of like Hype magazine or something like
Right.
that, and he looks over at her, and without looking back at his magazine, sort of like casually flips the cover shut because now his attention is 100%
Oh,
returned to her, and
yes.
it's so well done. Like,
Yes.
there's no question in my mind that this scene was motion captured and that they nailed exactly what the actor had done. And yeah, one spin-off with Stan, please. Like, I'd love
Yes.
to have more with that character.
Yes. Yes. And I don't know. I just can't say enough. And his response when Jody brings the memory of his wife back to him, just
Mhm.
his, yeah.
And
I don't think I'm going to be able to convey as big as I feel about it. Go ahead.
and that the backstory that you get for Stan, because there's any number of possible ways that a person might become
Yes.
homeless, and you
Yes.
get sort of a variety here in the underpass where Walter, it's at least implied that Walter, drinks, and that's
Right.
sort of his vice. And then I keep forgetting the other guy's name, I
The
assume
scrubby
heroin
dude.
addict.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you do get some of Tuesday's story where she fled from a very abusive relationship,
Yep.
and then you get Stan's, which is, as far as we are made aware, his wife died,
Yeah.
and that's his story. Like, it's not like it wasn't a whole pile of different calamities.
Right.
He lost the love of his life and was unable to continue with the basics of, keeping a job and keeping a roof over his head, and just slid further and further and further until this is where he is. And he doesn't even seem to bemoan his station in life.
Right.
He's just, there's this frozen grief to him that
Yeah.
made him a very relatable character.
Yeah, and I very much appreciate that presentation, because there's this stigma around homelessness is just so disgusting. And it is either it's always someone's an addict, or they fucked up their lives on purpose, or they're mentally they have some chemical imbalances that cause them to have trouble with stability. And then it was very refreshing to see a man who was fully in control of his faculties without any addiction. It was just pure grief that nothing mattered anymore.
Yeah, but he was still a very compassionate
Oh my
person, and
God.
got Jody to safety when she needed it. And I remember that when she woke up in that encampment, and I there's not a particular single moment that
Yeah.
it sort of turned for me, but at first you'd be like, at least I'd be very on my guard. I don't know where I am. I don't know who this is. I don't know if I'm allowed to leave. But he did such a good job of setting her at ease and giving her some time to recover and being non-threatening. And I sort of
Right.
very quickly came around to, if he meant her harm, he wouldn't have waited for her to wake up.
Exactly.
It seemed like everything was going to be okay.
Right. And I was very much on alert, waiting, scrutinizing his facial expressions and his body language to see if we were going to have any kind of fucking disgusting creep factor with respect to how he viewed her. And there was none of it. And it was such a freaking relief.
And I felt pretty okay around, Walter. Like, I did a
Oh,
walk
yeah.
around with Jody, and, Tuesday's there, and she's sort of like, she has her hand on her stomach, and she looks pregnant, and I'm like, okay, I feel like I understand over here. And then at least Jody didn't have an option to speak to Walter when I walked her over, but he does greet her and has some lines of dialogue about, like, oh, hey,
Yep.
welcome back to the land of the living. And I felt like I got a sense for, like, okay, this guy's no threat.
Right.
Alcoholism or being drunk can take a lot of different forms and a lot of different people, and this guy seems just chilled and happy and just enjoying his life, so that's
Yeah.
cool. And then when I went over to the last guy, who again, name unknown, I went over and my reaction was, okay, I'm just gonna let this person alone. And I
Right.
remain a little bit concerned that people who watch the VOD will feel like, oh, there's this, Angel has this stigma or mistrust around drug addicts. And I did mention and would again underscore here, I having an addiction to drugs does not make you an inherently bad or even an unstable person, but
Correct.
pain and desperation can drive people to sudden and irrational behaviors. And I don't know enough about this person who in that scene is grasping at a needle and checking to see if there's anything left into it. And I'm like, maybe I just don't want to be in this person's space because I have no idea what their mindset is.
Right.
Whereas for Tuesday and Walter, they seemed either preoccupied or very welcoming. I can assure you that if Tuesday had snapped, "Don't touch my stuff," I would have left her corner of the area alone as well.
Right, of course. Of course. And I would say, honestly, the person I struggled with the most, though, in that little family unit was Tuesday. And the reason for that is because there was... I get really fussy about this biology is everything, and keeping your child at all costs is the most important, most noble, most integral thing that a person can do. And I continue to struggle with the fact that she couldn't even take care of herself, and she wants to bring this baby into the world. And caring, wanting your baby to be safe and happy and healthy is phenomenal, but it was so like Pollyanna, sunshine and roses, unrealistic. She just struck me as very selfish. And hopefully what they convey after you discover that Jody has been in a coma for several months, and she's looking around at the pictures in her hospital room, and she has recollections of each of their visits, and the baby is a few months older. I don't know. Like, I think what you are expected to believe from that is that they're in a healthy place, Tuesday and her little one. But it really bothered me that she was so adamant on keeping her kid. I don't know if that makes any sense. I mean, yeah.
It makes sense. Like, when I was watching these scenes, I was like, so for anybody who's watching this VOD and doesn't live in the United States of America, our healthcare system is fucked. It's really bad. But it was hard not to feel like the developers at Quantic Dream believe that it's slightly worse than it actually is, because, and this might go to personal choice, but it should be true that in what appears to be a fairly large metropolitan area, Tuesday would have access to like some shelters and some support that are particularly set up for, young pregnant women. And there was also like never once a consideration of bringing her to a hospital.
Right.
And I wanted to ask you, because you've done more work in and around the medical field than I have. If you like show up in labor to a hospital, they don't turn you away because your Blue Cross Blue Shield card isn't in perfect working order. Like, they help you deliver the baby and survive, and everybody gets the care that they need. Yeah.
Yes. And she didn't, I believe she didn't want to go to the hospital because I think she was concerned that the little one would be taken away. I think, if I'm remembering that correctly, there
could have been an element to that, that she's got this abusive ex out there that's like possibly hunting. That could have been it as well, that she didn't want to be in the system. I hadn't thought of that before you just mentioned it.
Well, I actually wasn't thinking of the system. I was just thinking of the medical professionals. They have an obligation, you know, if they see a child in a situation that is dangerous, they have to report it. And then DCS gets involved, and they could take her child away from her. I was not thinking about the boyfriend at that time. I was thinking she doesn't want her baby to get taken away by, you know, the Department of Children's Services, Health and whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's another really good point. Yeah. So there's a variety of reasons then she might not want to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that right there is helpful, because I really was like, okay, job one is you don't die in childbirth, and neither does the baby. And also, unless I misheard, the baby came like a month early, didn't it? I'm trying to remember. Was it a young girl, the baby?
I think oh geez, isn't this ridiculous? I don't. What was? I think it was a baby, and I was surprised at how quickly it progressed, because I thought Tuesday was 6 or 7 months pregnant, and then in the next scene, you know, overnight she's going into labor. But it didn't seem like they were talking about it as if there was a concern because the baby was so premature.
Yeah, it didn't come up, but I thought that she was like 7-8 months along in there, but maybe there was a time jump that I just didn't pick up on between the scenes. Nobody seemed to change their clothes too much between those two moments, but it's not like they have a large wardrobe to go to either. So, but before we get there, I was curious how you earned money when it's like, okay, we need some hot food, we got to go get some money. What did you do?
I didn't. I sat with Stan for a minute and then got grumpy about it and decided to go off on my own. And I walked across, I was approaching people, and I think this was a direct result of the fact that I had played Hobo Tough Life. I was expecting to walk around and talk to all the people who were there and ask them for money, and I couldn't interact with any of them. And then she finds the pizza in the garbage. Did you find pizza?
I did not know.
Yeah, she went to a trash bin, found a couple of slices of pizza, and really struggled with whether she was going to eat it. And I was thinking, eat the fucking pizza. Like, and also bring a piece back to Stan. What is happening? And she struggled with it and like took a bite and then just threw them both away. And I don't know if I missed something. I was looking at I was looking very closely at the pizza. I was trying to see if they were trying to tell us that it was moldy or something. I don't know why she didn't eat it. But then I had her walk into the cafe, and she asks the owner, you know, please, can I have some food? I have her ask twice. He says, no, get the hell out of here. And then as I'm trying to regroup to figure out what's next, I saw a payphone. And I thought maybe there's change. Again, I'm in Hobo Tough Life mode here, which if people do not know about that game, I would very much recommend checking it out. It's a really neat survival crafting game. Very challenging. I'm looking forward to playing it more. But I get there and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get some change here. And then I got the prompt that it was nighttime and I had to go back to Stan. Like, and yeah, my percentages at the end were very bad with respect to how did you get money. So you tell me, please.
Interesting. It sounds like this scene is going to be one that people will definitely want to check out, because I had none of those things.
What?
I mean, yeah. So I sat with Stan for a few moments, and then it seemed like nothing was happening. Jody wanted to get up, so I got up. And then I was walking around a little bit, and I was like there's a supermarket across the street. And I'm like, okay, I'm definitely not going there, because they're gonna like kick me out or call the cops.
They do.
Whenever
Wait, I'm so sorry, Angel, just real quick. Yes, I tried to walk to the supermarket and the guy standing outside just went, and wouldn't let me walk in. Sorry. Continue.
Okay, yeah, I assumed that was going to happen. And then I gave everybody a wide berth because I was worried that, like, you know, some asshole would want to, like, show off by, like, shoving down the homeless person and, like pushing Jody into the snow or something. So I gave them a wide berth. And I went up to a newspaper machine, and I was able to work with Aiden to get some money out of that, and that felt pretty good. And then as I'm walking down the street, there's this guy with a guitar, and Jody asked him about the guitar, and he's like, "Yeah, I play sometimes, but it's too cold right now. Be my guest." And Jody sits down and plays a song, and of greater interest to me, also sings a song. And that's why I was curious if you had gotten this, because I do not know if they got a sound alike for Elliot Page or if he's also a pretty good singer, but I really like this. And it turned out that this performance brought in all the money that that Jody and Stan were going to need.
Oh my God. What a wildly different experience.
Yeah, completely different in tone. Total, like, no pizza, no getting kicked out of anywhere. I'll be interested in your thoughts, and I certainly want to see your playthrough.
Well, yeah, and ditto. And also, as you're telling me this, I forgot a very important moment. Did you approach a man, like, standing at the corner of the cafe?
No, I don't think I went near the cafe, but I'd have to look back. I definitely didn't go inside.
Angel, I totally forgot to share this with you. I go up to this guy or walk near him and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And he's like, "Hey, I could help you out if you help me out." And
oh, was this guy in front of the alleyway?
Yes!
I did get a proposition by, and then I was like, no way. And then I, like, started to go down the alleyway, and I'm like, wait, that guy's gonna come in if I go in. I immediately turned around and left the alley.
I actually continued down the alley, and it turns out there was a bonus content. I unlocked a bonus at the end of the alley.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. That's something that you and I didn't talk about at all, that I had completely forgotten about. Now, are they ever visible unless you're Aiden?
Not that I have seen.
Okay. Yeah, every once in a while, I'll just be scouting with Aiden, and I'll like find something that's glowing, and I'll be like, every single time, I'll be like, "Oh, what's this?" And then it's like bonus content unlocked. Like, oh, okay.
Right.
I don't actually know what that means, but it'll be something to check out at the end for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I thought the surprise I was going to get at the end of the alleyway was going to be what we wound up getting at the end of Just Other Girls. So I stayed the hell out of that and continued on down the path.
That actually is very smart. I mean, luckily it turned out nothing happened, but that didn't occur to me.
So Jody brought back I think it's like $15 and change to Stan. Yeah, he was super jazzed, and then went to the. So I'm curious, like with that, he went over to the supermarket to get some supplies for everybody.
Yes.
And so what? How did yours go from that point? Like, so you didn't have a lot of money. What happened?
Stan said he'd gotten a couple of dollars, and he went to the supermarket and came back with a couple of cans of tuna and Neil Breen, which was really interesting.
But wait, so he goes and he gets tuna and he comes back?
Yeah, he goes. He goes. Well, you don't realize it's tuna right away. He's like, "It's okay. I got enough for us for tonight." He goes. He comes out with a bag, and then it cuts to a scene where they're sitting around eating from cans of tuna. Yeah, all of them, the whole little family unit.
And. Oh boy, now I'm concerned that I'm misremembering mine. There was no assault.
Assault?
Like a fight?
I forgot about the assault. Oh my God, how am I forgetting about all of the dramatic moments? Yes.
I was going to be like, whoa, maybe earning money wasn't the way to go.
No, there was an assault, yeah. And
so like the bum fight guys show up videotaping, like, it's... Again, if you don't live in America and the United States and haven't been exposed to what sometimes is presented as culture here, this might seem insanely callous, like beyond any hope of realism. But in the real world, there was some series of videos that were put out for bum fights where homeless people were inspired to fight each other so that they could be videotaped and then sold. That was a real thing that happened. And this appears to be the Quantic Dream like version of this, where a group of, I was calling them frat boys in my head. You know, they could be from anywhere. They could be insurance adjusters, but they're basically roaming around looking for crimes to commit on camera, and presumably so that they can either watch them back or post them to the, you know, nascent YouTube community. And they go ahead and they assault Stan, and Jody had an opportunity to deal with that. And I, like, in a total reversal from what we were talking about with Like Other Girls, that felt really good to be able to intercede on Stan's behalf. Right.
No, absolutely.
And then yes, we all went back and had hot tuna.
Okay. Oh, hot tuna.
Is that like a shudder of that sounds really good? Because to me,
no.
I'm actually a fan of like tuna fish sandwiches and stuff, but I just cannot envision having them hot. It sounds bad to me.
Actually, it was a shudder of tuna, gross, hot tuna, grosser.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because I think he says to her, I hope you like tuna. And I think I responded in my recording, like, oh, like, what would I do in that moment? Because I don't. But, you know, obviously you would eat it. You know, garlic-filled tuna when you're starving, I think. would.
Yeah, and in that scenario, there was actually, like, you know, as the meal had sort of, like, wound down, I actually didn't want to push the button to get Jody up, because every once in a while she was still having some tuna, and I'm like, oh, she worked really hard for this. Like, this was a meal that almost didn't happen. I don't want to, like, interrupt her from my entertainment.
Oh.
Now, after dinner, there was something that I missed, so I'm curious if you got different results. I did help the heroin addict guy with his, like, withdrawals. I did help Tuesday to know that her baby was okay.
Yep.
And then I did go over to Walter, but I didn't seem to have any interactions with him at all.
You know, yeah, I don't recall. I remember heroin or drug addict guy, Tuesday, and Stan, and I am not remembering Walter. And maybe that was because Walter was okay with, or Walter is okay with the fact that alcohol is his addiction, and he's content being who he is. Maybe there was nothing that needed to change. I don't know.
Yeah, and then at the end it was like you didn't help everybody after dinner or whatever. I don't remember exactly how it was phrased, but the game presented as though there was some interaction I had missed, and I wasn't sure if you had gotten something more.
Gosh, I hope I didn't interact with Walter and have completely forgotten about it. Like, it was a week ago, for God's sake. It wasn't 7 years. Now, okay, but with respect to that, so the building, right? Also, why weren't they living in that building to begin with? If it was a shelter, the building where they brought Tuesday to have her baby?
That's a good question. It's possible that it was farther away from the other things that they wanted or needed. Yeah. It's possible that they were worried if they spent too much time in there that that they'd get chased out and the building would be forever. Like, this is someplace we can go in an emergency, but we mustn't. But I don't know. That's a really good question.
Yeah. I had been wondering that. So the building catches on fire. We are not sure, by the way, how that started, right? Or, like, whether it was intentional or whether it was the space heater. Like, was that?
It was the thugs that had attacked Stan. It was.
Oh, right. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Oh, for God's sake. Okay, so but at the end of that scene, it asks, or it says, you and such percentage of players saved everybody. Did you save everyone?
Yes.
Okay, because can you imagine? I didn't realize that not saving everyone was an option. Can you imagine not saving everyone? That would have been horrifying.
It really would have been. And like again, at like the everybody pulls together to get Tuesday what she needs to make it through this labor. And that includes the guy whose name apparently neither of us can remember. And he was every bit as caring and
Yes.
alarmed for her safety. And when Jody gets him out of the burning room, and here was an appropriate use of taking away his free will to get him across that gap.
Right.
Like I was, because that if
Yes.
that or be dead, right? So that was
Right.
perfectly fine.
Yep.
And he gets to the other side, he's not even sure what's happened. And then I think his final words to her is, "You have to get Tuesday. Tuesday's in there." Like he's in full blown panic mode, but not so much so that he's not still thinking about Tuesday's safety. So
Right.
it felt a lot better, and I got a better sense for him by the end of that whole sequence.
Oh, for sure. Also, did you notice that both Tuesday and he have the three? She's got 3 stars by one of her eyes, and he had 3 marks by one of his. Had you know?
I noticed that she had the 3 stars. I did not notice his.
Yeah, they were. I think they were on the other side. I don't know, but I'd be curious to know if that is a thing. I don't know what that would indicate, but maybe that's some kind of cultural reference I am unfamiliar with. So the burning building was the quick time events in that. How did you get out of that? Because I failed a billion of them, and she got clocked in the head and she got knocked out, and Stan went in and got her and brought her out, and they did CPR.
And was that how she wound up in a coma?
Yes.
Interesting.
Oh,
because
what happened? Tell me.
I got out of the building okay. The fire kept
Wow.
coming. She was driven up to like the 3rd floor. She leapt off of the 3rd floor building and did this like Akira style like smash down with the help of Aiden. So she was completely uninjured.
Whoa.
And then the thugs who had assaulted Stan came over and like basically get her from behind, slam her down, and then like some guy, and I think it's like with a baseball bat or something, just like hammers her in the back of the skull.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Oh.
and that was where it was revealed that, or sorry, it was like they were there, and then in the subsequent scene where she woke up in the hospital, it was clarified that they had been arrested. And I like, honest to God, when I woke up in the hospital, one of the very first things I noticed was over Jody's left shoulder, so it was on
Yeah.
the right side of the screen,
Yeah.
was that newspaper clipping.
Yep.
And I'm listening to the dialogue and thinking to myself, yo, whoever put that up was a fucking asshole. That like the first thing Jody's gonna see when she wakes up is this newspaper article about these frat boys that were going around like what was it? How was it exactly? Was it phrased that they were beating up low lifes or something? I'm trying to remember how it was phrased. It wasn't low lifes. It was like down and outers. It was some like really dismissive but also vague, dehumanizing term.
Yeah.
And then we got a flashback that it was Stan. It was like, oh, whoops.
Right. That's hilarious. But and I think that's probably why the fact that they were the ones who set the fire, it didn't stick in my head, because they had no part in my experience in the building. But it was, again, in the room afterward with respect to the article and Stan talking to her about they caught the guys, blah 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 blah. But that is, I very much appreciate that the options were, or the results. I mean, we were going to end up in the hospital no matter what happened to us. But I really like the fact that we could have had 2 very different experiences on the way there. That,
Yeah, and it changes the tone of it.
yeah.
Where in your story, you come away with this vision of Jody having maybe overextended herself to save other people, and you get a chance on how you feel about that. Which,
Yep.
at least for me, it sounds like it would be it. You know, if you can save four, well, the baby counts as well. So yeah, that's four other people.
Yep.
And you get injured on the way, like four other people survived, whereas for
Right.
me, I got everybody out, and then these complete psychopaths who it turns out had tracked down Jody as like as vengeance for the fact that she stopped their previous assault on Stan, and get her from behind and like bash her in the head while she's down. Like it it gives that wake up in the hospital a very different feel. And
Yeah.
that's what I like about games like this.
Yeah. And I think they did a great job telling the story of the passage of time through each of the family units visits. I thought that was
Hmm.
really nice. And I liked that drug addict dude was lucid. You know, or Jody's assistants stuck with
Yes.
him. Yeah.
It felt like all of their, like, I did not talk about Aiden or anything with the group. I feel like Jody is really in a dark place, and past all this, and suffering with the consequences of having this passenger alongside her life, and isn't going to be talking to other people about it, even as she continues to work with Aiden to do things like ameliorate addiction shakes and so forth.
Right.
So, but it still felt very much like everyone was better off for having their lives having intersected with Jody. That Stan
Yeah.
and Tuesday and Walter and the other guy are all like better off than they were. That this event sort of not only brought them together in that moment, but sent them scattering off into a brighter tomorrow.
Yeah. So yeah. Angel, I love the fact that you thought we were going to do a short one. Even it's been an hour and a half. I love this. This is great. They're just going to keep getting longer.
Yeah, and I'm very much looking forward to the next set. As always, we'll probably aim for a couple hours, and
Yep.
then come back together to record them. This was great. Thank you very much for chatting
Yeah.
about this with me.
Yeah, and thank you so much. If folks are, I mean, why would you be aware of this? But I haven't been feeling great lately, and I had to postpone this conversation for a couple of days. So thank you so much for your flexibility and patience. This was awesome.
Sure thing. I had a great time. So
Yeah.
we'll talk again real soon.
All right, sounds good. Take
Bye.
care.